brand isn't what you think it is. The brand is what the community perceives it to be. And I think that's the most important factor into helping someone understand what a brand is. I mean, a brand really is everything you do. So for us, it's what? If you don't show up the sidewalk to your business on a snowy day, your customers could have a bad experience, and that will affect your brand in a negative way. But it really ends up being what everyone else thinks it is, not what you think it is. And I think once that becomes clear, then you can start talking about, all right, what direction, how do we want to mold or build or develop this brand? It's based on what does your brand currently represent in the community, which could be, your customers, internal with your employees. It could be candidates if you're recruiting. So I think that's what I find most important is when a client understands or a small business understands that what matters most is what everyone else thinks of your brand, and you have to figure out a way to best influence that perception. And the best way to do that is to what? Is just to be you, is to be authentic, right?
Right. And I think a mistake that we see quite a bit is that it'll focus on a particular service or a particular product that person will sell. And it's what they think, what they want the brand to be. So you're not going to go to a store just for like one thing. I mean, I guess you will, but like if you're going to be a loyal customer, you're going to go because of what that company stands for. I think loyalty is so important, and it's not just transactional. So focusing on just one thing, okay, we sell, jewelry, we're just going to focus on engagement rings. That's it. It's kind of missing the mark.
Well, then it gets to, and this, I mean, let's be real, this has cost us some business, which I think is good for both sides, for us and a potential small business that we thought we could help. A lot of times, and I completely understand why, but a lot of times small businesses, they just want to get right to that tactic. They want to, whatever. I just want to run television ads, or we're thinking to do these billboards, or the big thing is now we got to be digital. That's where the world is. So we need a digital strategy. Or, hey, we need a new logo, which is closer to where we're going when we start talking about identifying a brand. But there's another thing. People think that a brand is a logo, which that is, I know we can talk about that too, but it really comes down to molding that message. And we say message before delivery. So what is it? What is that message going to be that whatever medium you utilize, it doesn't matter what it is, that it will be real and it will connect with those people. Again, though, that's messaging before we decide where we're going to go. And even before the messaging, say for a TV ad, it is what is the brand and what is it representing? Because once you understand the big picture and the big umbrella and where the brand is going, et cetera, based on maybe a brand audit, then you can better decide, all right, whatever direction we're going to market this, and we can start creating the copy for that messaging. But it really all starts with the brand. And a lot of times I find, I mean, you guys are with me on all those too, right? That it's, hey, we want to do this, which is cool. It's great that they want to do that, but it's hard for them to maybe understand, you mean I got to do all this stuff first? And most want that action and instant gratification. And that's pretty rare when it comes to when it comes to, you could drop all this stuff. I always say this, forget doing a brand audit, building your brand. Where do you want to be? I want to do radio ads. Great. All you have to do is we'll make one commercial and it will pack your place, and you'll say, the next 25 people that show up, all get $1 million, right? So it has nothing to do with who you are, what you are, but you're going to give away $1 million, and that will be the instant gratification. But I just think that it's really important for people to understand the terminology on both sides. Once we have a clear understanding of what they think a brand is and what we think a brand is, and how we can get on the same page of what we want to represent and how to best do that, then it becomes a lot smoother. But sometimes when they're in that, hey, I need to do whatever, a seminar in 2 weeks, and I want to pack that. That's, I don't like doing that business. I'd rather, you better have something great to offer if it's going to be in 2 weeks. But I will do that business if we have the time and we look at this and we decide that brand is on target. But if your brand isn't on target, it's not, which 99% of the time, it isn't for a small business. They're busy. They're doing a lot of other things. And so I just think that is critical. Before doing any kind of advertising, you really need to identify who you are, what you represent, and develop that brand. I don't know if that's making sense, but
Yeah. And I think also understanding it's not a quick thing. You're not going to get your brand, put your new sign on the door, and then you're going to be able to, people are just going to start running through. Like, I think if you do have a solid brand, you also have to give it a little bit of time to cook, and the story will, catch on. We had a client that we did. I mean, it was a pretty sweet logo. The slogan was on point. The brand was a strong brand. They put the new sign on there. And then I remember them contacting us. They were like, there's been no change. We've had absolutely no change. We're like, well, no kidding. You just put a new sign up 2 weeks ago, and that's pretty much all we've been able to do so far. You're not telling your story. Nobody's connecting with you, but then on the other hand, we have another client who, and maybe it's because we manage those expectations differently. But it took her, I mean, and she always says it took a good year, but now people have an emotional connection with the brand, and it's a very different type of client that she's getting now. It's not just, hey, I need a tooth cleaning, and then they're going to leave, and then that's pretty much it. And they're just looking for some place that's in their network because they have dental insurance or is close by. They have an emotional connection with the brand that we built, with her just being her. And now, even if they have dental insurance and she's not on it, they don't care. They're going to go to her because they have an emotional connection, because the brand connects.
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about Kelly, Dr.
Yep.
Kelly Trong, Crosspoint Dentistry. That's the positive story where, yeah, she's I mean, we have her as a case study on our website. We use her all the time because it's interesting because her whole campaign, well, her brand, is dentistry the way it should be, right? So she's just a small one-person dentist office up against, which is becoming these big conglomerates. They're all buying each other up. There's these big dental practices. So the big box store, she's up against the big box store. So she's in the days of she's a young lady, and she has all the modern equipment, but she loves that one-on-one conversation. She's the only dentist. She has multiple hygienists. And just so what you noticed as time went on is her ability in helping people when they have a fear of the dentist.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's what's really cool about that. And it did take, it took a good year to really get traction. All the logo stuff and everything was complete. And then we started doing some advertising. But I read all the emails that come in to her for new customers, new patients. And I'm sure she's a great dentist. But nobody says, hey, I hear you're a great dentist. I'd like to come to you because you're a great dentist. They all write to her and say, you seem like you're courteous, you're nice, understanding. You're not judgmental. You seem just really good for me because I'm really scared. I'm afraid to go to the dentist. I haven't been there in 20. And they give the whole life story. I haven't been there in so long. And it's because they feel that connection with her because her brand is on brand. And it has been now for many years. So it really takes off now. and they identify with her. Also, she's a woman. She's very motherly. Everybody in the office is actually a mother. And so we don't say, hey, Dr. Kelly Trong is a woman. You should go see her. We just let her talk about her philosophies. And obviously her philosophies are on brand because that's who she is.
Mhm.
And she talks about how the gratification or what it takes when why she appreciates people that do have a fear. And she just talks in her, we'll create videos, there's radio ads. Um, it's just her talking like she would be talking to a potential patient, and that works. And that's why people are like, you just seem so nice, so
Right.
courteous. And then of course she does a good job for them and they tell all these other people. So it's pretty cool, but that all goes back to we had an understanding both sides of what is a brand, what is the definition of a brand, and how can we build this brand or develop it so that it definitely represents your practice, and will connect in a way that we want to with the community. And to your point, people, I don't care about insurance. I want to work with Dr. Kelly Trong. She's a great lady. She's a great dentist, but it's her personality that connects with people. And then you talked about, I know who you're talking about, names about the
Mhm.
client you had beforehand, because you made that logo. We did, and we were on the same page with them with their brand
Mhm.
and what a brand is and how to develop a brand. We did an audit. We figured out who, what, when, where, and why, and how people think of them. And so we were all in agreement. I actually remember you developed a logo, and in that situation, the colors weren't, it just was off, and they didn't love it. We didn't love it. We were still in development. And then I don't remember if they had the idea, but you changed the colors, and right away in that meeting, we were all like, that's it. Okay, that's perfect. That will be a good representation of you. And then we made signage, and it was great signage, because the next stage after that is, what are we going to do for advertising and telling the world? But before we got to that, they wanted to know why their business wasn't growing after 2 weeks of having this beautiful sign. I don't think that's their fault. I think that's
Right.
our fault. And you
Yep.
mentioned it. We didn't manage the expectations properly. That's poor communication
Mhm.
on us. It's completely on us for not discussing with them. Maybe because we were so pumped about building that particular brand, because we thought that client got it and was really good at what they did, and they can really help people in the community. And I think we we just assumed they knew that was the next step, and we didn't communicate it.
Yeah.
We didn't communicate it properly.
And that might even be a reason why there's also such a misconception of what brand is to begin with and all that it touches. I mean, we understand it. We think that we maybe explained it the right way, but it obviously didn't land. We didn't manage the expectation of how long that it can take to get those like meaningful clients, and that all that it can touch.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it wasn't just
Communication's huge.
because we were on the same page when it came to the brand.
Yeah.
And I still think that brand is properly representing them. What we weren't on the same page is, what's that next step? Maybe
Yeah.
that's a discussion we can have another time, but that implementation of the brand. And it's not just your website. The website's obviously important, but when we start telling the world, what is the verbiage we're going to use? What is that messaging or that advertising? Yeah, just because you create a new sign doesn't mean that you're gonna, you're gonna pack the place. But to that point, Maria, with your abilities in design, uh, talk about what is the logo? What is it as part of a brand development? What do you see the role being of what a logo is when you start to develop a brand? Because a lot of people, there's $99 online. I can go get a logo
Mhm.
somewhere, and it might look really good too, right? There's a lot of good
Yeah.
artists out there, and now we got a lot of tools, and here you, that's a really cool logo. It looks great. So what's the difference between that and somebody developing a logo when they're focused on brand?
So I think I learned with every logo that I do, we call it a lot of times we call it their visual identity. I learn something new every single time I create a new logo for somebody. With we just did one with ModPack and I learned a little bit more about making sure. I mean, I go from working with, a dentist or, a spa to somebody whose like job is making sure everything is lined up perfectly so that they can like send printing out. So, I mean, looking a little bit more at like measurement of things. But one thing that I really learned over the past maybe year, 2 years was that I'm not good at just somebody wants us to come in and they just want a logo and they don't want to focus on the brand. To me, it's kind of like a writer going to an illustrator and say, I need you to draw the pictures for this children's book. But I don't have the story yet. So you go ahead and draw the pictures and then we'll get to the story later. I have to be able to connect with that company's story because for me, their logo or their visual identity is an illustration of their brand. It's kind of the first impression, the first time meeting somebody. So that's why we go through what we do, right? Is really digging in. Who are you? Why do you do what you do? What are your clients saying about you? I think about like Heat Wave, them meeting as like kids was part of the story going through and why they're the business that they are. But I think it's, at least for me, I have to be able to really connect and understand what that story is before designing a logo. I just feel like it's a little colder if you don't. And it doesn't set you apart at all. Like you said, it can look nice. You can go on Canva or, Adobe Express or just an online site and order something. I think like about like Lake Life. They could have just gone and gotten like a cool little coffee cup, icon with some steam coming off of it and some nice like flowy text and have it be like brown because that's the color of coffee, but it's not authentically them. It's not telling their story. I just think that's at least for me, that's an important piece of it.
Well, I think for small businesses, that's an important piece of it.
Yeah.
And that's why this discussion I appreciate. I mean, obviously we're on the same page. We work together. So,
Right.
but I think it's real important for a small business to understand that you don't just get a logo. And,
Mhm.
places like Lake Life Cafe, Amy and Mark, they understood that. They
Mhm.
understood that there's a process to developing a brand. Part of developing the brand is, first of all, understanding what you represent, who, what, when, where, and why. And it's very difficult to do that on your own, but I believe it can be done.
Mhm.
We've seen some, I mean, those guys really had it together. I mean, if
Oh
anyone
my
could
God.
do it themselves, it would be Lake Life
So
Cafe.
smart and
It
organized.
was unbelievable. Yet they still wanted help. They just, they wanted uh, other ideas, right? I think
Mhm.
one of the things I said, leadership discussion with somebody, I think great characteristic of a leader is to be curious. And what I mean by curious is have confidence that you don't know everything and other ideas could get you to where you need to be. And I think they are both very strong leaders. That's why they're good in business, but they have confidence that um and humility that others could actually help them get to that next level. And I,
Mhm.
I think getting a team together to best identify uh who you really are, because it is almost like an identity crisis. A lot of
Yeah.
times a small business really doesn't, they just don't know, and it doesn't mean, all it means is because they're too busy. They're try we have the same problem.
Yeah.
How many times have we said, okay, we're going to create content or something for LinkedIn, and we just check that off, and because we put a client in there instead. I mean, we don't even always do what we say, what we tell our clients to do, right? We're too busy trying to help our clients. So that's what
Mhm.
happens in small business. Even we build brands, and we had others from the outside help us identify ourselves. And this is what we do. So it isn't difficult. So I'm not trying to belittle small business owners. I think it's just a very common thing, characteristic or a shortcoming of a small business is, number one, to understand what a brand is, and then to understand that it's really important to go through the process
Mhm.
of identifying, number one, what the community currently thinks you are, or if you're a new business, where you want to go. And if you are a current business, what you are, who you are, what you represent, and then where it is that you would like to go. Who are those people that you would like to connect with? And then your messaging can obviously target them. But another thing we always talk about when building a brand, or I say morphing a brand into what you want it to be or what you want it to be perceived to be, is it should be perceived to be what you really are. Don't create a brand because you think that's what people want and that's what you want to sell. That will be, it'll be a bust because people can figure that out. You really have to be yourself. We talk about this all the time. We do a lot of work in the in healthcare. And so we've had docs that are really good with bedside manner. Well, let's show your bedside manner, and that gets into storytelling. And I think that's for another time too. But the point is, the brand should encourage discussion. We should highlight this doc who has great bedside manner. Well, what if you have bad bedside manner? Do you want to tell everyone I'm a jerk, whatever? Well, no, but you want to be real. Maybe your bedside manner, because not everyone's a fit for everybody, right? As much as we want to be, you're not. So maybe your bedside manner is, I'm not even going to say, I'll say hi to you, but I'm going to get right down to it. If there's bad news, I'm not sugarcoating it. I'm getting right down. I'm telling you what that news is, and we're going to deal with it. And I'm literal. I don't have time for games, and I don't believe it's best for you, for me to, I think it's more important to get you the correct information so that together we can make that right decision. That should be your brand, because that would be attractive to some people who would say, I'm all in. This person, this woman, this man, this doc isn't going to mess around. She's going to tell me exactly what the situation is. Whereas this other doc, it's not a fit for me. He or she, it's just, it's too fluffy for me. I don't need that. So you identify who you are, and you'll find that tribe that's going to follow you all in, because your brand reflects who you really are. Is that making sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think by doing that, by connecting more emotionally with people, you're not having just a transactional relationship. You have a strong, meaningful one where people are going to be loyal to you, and then you become part of their story too. You become part of their brand almost.
Jamie, shut up.
No, it's all good stuff. I didn't have anything I was just kind of listening to what you guys were saying. There really wasn't anything for me to add during the time. I'll just say this. There is power in having, an outside organization or an outside group to be able to kind of give you what the perception of your brand actually is. Because if you think about it, you yourself, you don't know what you actually look like. You only can rely on a mirror. You cannot see yourself through the eyes of somebody else. So same thing goes for a business. To really see what they look like, it's basically impossible, because they started from the ground up. That's their business. So to have somebody else, whether family members, friends, a marketing company, to be able to see what they actually are perceived as. We always talk about the community. There's power in that because it's being seen through a different lens.
Yeah, you just gave me an idea. Actually, we might have discussed this before. I think we should create something for small business owners or people in small business that has more guts to what you were just talking about, which would be, okay, I'm going to get a family member to help me actually identify who I am and to interview me and get this out of me. I think we could help them, by giving them some direction on how to conduct that interview and how to make it work. We should, we'll set up a conversation, and maybe we can turn that into to a podcast for the future, is how can these small businesses do it on their own? What goes into identify, because I think you're right. They can't do it on their own, which doesn't mean do they have to go hire a marketing firm. I'm not positive, but I suppose they could try it with person X, Y, or Z. And then if it doesn't work out, they could go to the next step. As long as I identify how important it is to identify what that brand and how to best get there, or how to best represent it so it connects in a way, I think maybe we could help give them some of, I don't know, it's not the answers, because we don't have the answers. They have the answers. And so part of the art form is getting the answers out of them. And when you think about it, when we've developed any brands, I would say every time the answers have come from the small business. They have all the answers. We just help get it out of them. So there is an art form to that. And obviously we have years of experience doing it. So maybe we can, we're to the point where we just know how to do it, but maybe we could make a simple cheat sheet for people. What I don't want them to do is read from a cheat sheet, though. I mean, that's right. You want to teach them how can they have a conversation and identify. Maria brought up earlier, heat wave heating and cooling. We were having our initial conversation with them, and we'll call it a discovery phase. We're trying to identify who they are. And in that conversation, we just started asking about their family. And I remember Dave, Chloe was saying, why does anyone care? Why does anyone care about that? What does that have to do with our business? And we said, we didn't know yet. We didn't know. But what we found out through that conversation, because we asked the next question, the next question, the next question, the next question, like a lawyer would do or a reporter would do, who, what, when, where, and why. And it led to the fact that Robin, who owns Heatwave, Dave, who owns the sister company, they grew up together on the same street. Okay. And now they're husband and wife, and they own these businesses. It's an awesome story. And I think people want to know that because they can connect with them on an emotional level. Again, that's storytelling too. That's a whole nother conversation that we should talk about. As a lot of people say, no one cares about their story, because you hear people or customers or potential customers or potential employees and candidates, they want to know what's in it for them. And that is true. That is very true. But the next step that I often hear is, but they don't care about you, or they care about what's in it for them. And I think when people say that, they're missing the point. And my point being that maybe they don't care about you, but they care about what you represent, because what you do, they want to be comfortable with you, because in the end, if they're comfortable with you, that's going to be best for them. So yeah, it's all about me, the customer, and I don't care about you, but I do care about your story because it represents you and your identity, and I can connect with that, and I'd want to buy that product or service from you because that's best for me. So I think that story is really important to tell any small business, which would represent their brand.